Now, again, I bring up Tim Pool because, again, I'm looking at somebody who did Jen and I a solid. It was actually, I can't really say definitively how much of an impact it actually had at the time because our podcast was brand new. We were not in a situation where it had, you can measure it. We had maybe a couple of thousand subscribers, if even that much at that time. We really had just gotten started. Like, really had just gotten started. But Tim was nice enough to have her on. Jen actually had a very interesting, we'll call it, debate between herself and Luke Rakowski, who I consider ourselves friendly with. I like Luke. I like Ian Crossland. We had a good conversation. It was interesting. Well, by Tim's chat, quite a few. But remember, at the time, and this was just prior to January 6th and that whole fiasco, Tim was pulling in at that time. I mean, again, I haven't watched the show in God knows how long, so I don't really know what his numbers look like. But at the time when Jen was on, it was at least 60,000 live viewers at a time. So it was substantial in terms of how many people got to see this. And then when we got back to South Florida, we met up one night in Fort Lauderdale, and two people came up to Jen saying, I saw you on Tim Pool's show. It was amazing, et cetera, et cetera. So I thought that was very interesting. But there is no question that Tim Pool has changed his trajectory in terms of his work, in terms of his integrity, dare I say, over the past few years. Now, when you get to a point of exceptional wealth, that some mighty have fallen quite a bit. And that was the point I was going to make. Thank you, Ron, for pointing that out. You see, when we were there, Tim was absolutely flying high. He never got to the level of Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, or yes, even Nick Fuentes, but he was pretty high up there, very high up there. And now 15,000 live viewers is still one hell of a reach, but it's certainly not what it once was. In fact, it's about 1/4 of what he once was at that time. And so in some respects, it would appear that Tim is crashing out. He got caught taking the money from Russia. That was indisputable. He was getting paid $100,000 a month to basically prop up various talking points, pro-war talking points from the side of Russia. Obviously, he has been a very vocal supporter of Trump. He claims that he's an independent, but we all know that the side he's falling on is not that side. And so, like I said, I don't pay that close attention to what he's doing, but I did pay attention to this because I thought his reaction to what is going on with Candace says it all.
Idea that Charlie would want her to advocate everyone pull their donations from the organization he built.
Yeah. It's ridiculous.
No one hates Charlie more than Candace Owens.
Okay. Now, anybody who's objective would say, no, actually, when it comes to Candace Owens, nobody cared about Charlie Kirk more than Candace Owens. That, I think, we can all universally agree upon. Candace Owens truly cares about Charlie Kirk. That was a friend to her. Now, we can get into the debate about who Charlie was, what he stood for, same with Candace. But one thing that cannot be disputed is Candace truly cared for this man. All the money, all the fame, all the power, it didn't mean anything to her when it came to her relationship with Charlie because they came up together at the same time when they had very little, if anything. Then obviously it blew up, of course. But at the time, they were two young whippersnappers, if you will, and they developed a very close bond, like a brother and sister. That's the vibe that I get from them. And I'm sure from Candace's perspective, she's beyond shaken because things got beyond real when they took him out. Perhaps because they thought, yeah, they say that they're going to do something, but are they really going to do? Oh, yeah, they are. And they sure did. But for Tim to immediately come right out of the gate on this clip and say that nobody hates Charlie Kirk more than Candace Owens, nobody loved Charlie Kirk more than Candace Owens, and that includes his wife, or widow, I should say. But believe me when I tell you, Timmy's got a lot more to say.
Let me say that very, very clearly. I want to say it straight to the camera for all of her biggest fans, and then she can grab this clip and put it on her show. I do think it's absolutely hilarious that we're a substantially smaller show than hers, but she brought us up anyway. So thanks for saying my name, Candace. No one hated Charlie Kirk more than Candace Owens.
You are at a level of cope right now that's actually pathetic even for you. But this is what happens when eventually you crash out. Why? Tim does not go anywhere near the issue of Israel at all. And you can believe that much like the other scummy, sellout punks like Steven Crowder, like Jack Posobiec, like Benny Johnson, they're not going to say a damn thing about Israel's involvement in what happened to Charlie. They're going to stick with the State Department talking point. That's what pays. That's what keeps them on the algorithm. And Timmy's going to do the same thing. This is a career, a very lucrative career. Now you're just paid propagandists. That's all you are. And you're going to crash like this? Dude, if you're going to go after Candace Owens, at least come up with a plausible talking point that people might be able to chew on. You just look like a fool. Tim Fool, if you will.
She reviles him, she spits on his grave, and she smiles while doing it. Okay, quote over. And I'll say this because Charlie spent his life building out these organizations. Candace is doing everything in her power to tear them down. She hates Charlie. She hates what Charlie built, and she wants it to burn. She hates Charlie's family. She hates Charlie's friends. She's accused them of killing him. She's accused his wife of having knowledge of these events. And then she comes out and says, I never said that. Not in the literal sense, but there's literally no other logical conclusion to what you're saying. So when I look at Colvett, and Bowyer and Blake and Erica and the people who work at Turning Point. And I say, you know, maybe they're not handling things properly and they don't know what to do what Charlie was doing. There's fears that Turning Point can't make it without Charlie. All of that is them trying to make Turning Point survive.
Turning Point is not going to survive. And one of the main reasons why Turning Point is not going to survive is because of Candace Owens. Candace Owens has been using her multi-million person platform to say Turning Point USA is a scam. Do not support them. And she's not telling them to support her either. She's just saying, just stop supporting them. And Tim Pool is carrying water for Turning Point USA. He's not even a part of their organization. In fact, I don't even think he's ever been a speaker at one of their main events. So who in the hell is he doing this for? That's the bigger question. Why is Tim stooping to such a low level? Again, I'm sure he said other things before, but again, this gets to the heart of the problem. And I just saw somebody mention PBD in the chat. Yeah, this is like Adam Zioscum Sosnick from the same area of South Florida that Jen is from, saying that Candace Owens doesn't have any friends. What the fuck does that mean? What does that have to do with anything? You think that that's how you measure somebody? Let me tell you something. In politics, you don't want a lot of friends. You can have acquaintances, and you sure as hell could have enemies. But friends in politics, oh, there's not many of them. And if you think there are, then either you're completely naive or you're in on the scam. And Tim is making himself look really, really guilty. And yes, Patrick Betts, Star of David, is still alive and kicking. And apparently Patrick Betts, Star of David, is the primary organizer for America Fest with TPUSA coming up next weekend. Oh, we're going to have a lot to say about that next Saturday. But this is kind of demented in a lot of ways in terms of how Tim is handling this. But he's not done.
Candace is advocating you abandon Turning Point USA. It's kind of remarkable to see.
But that's a good thing. Abandon Turning Point USA. Absolutely. There is no organization in the United States that had a greater impact on Christian Zionists supporting Israel below the age of 35 than TPUSA. Nothing could ever come close. Incredible grift in what they were able to accomplish over the past decade plus. But like I said, Charlie had an attack of conscience. And I'm sure the internal maneuverings within his organization also threw him for a loop. But this is completely different. It's not like a slight dose of criticism. It's we must deal with Candace Owens. And you're all going to speak ill of her. Tim didn't really care much to talk to me. We spoke a little bit. He actually showed me his 3D printer that created a gun. I saw that. Took me into his safe room, I guess you would call it. It was a place that was stocked with probably 3 or 4 months worth of food. But they didn't want me on the show. They had me sit in a corner. And I was like, hey, listen, this is for Jen and I. Like, it's not about me. This is about what we're trying to do. So, okay, that's fine. But no, I'm not related to, I mean, look, I can pass for Buscemi, apparently. I could also pass for Walken, too. You're all coming to me all wrong. It's the wrong tone. Why don't you all just take a break, listen while I express my thoughts on Tim Pool or Dim Tool, whatever his nickname is. He's got quite a few. Funny guy, not really, but let's continue.
But let's just do the logic here. Simple question for all of you. Throw it in the chat. Who do you think cares more about Turning Point? The people trying to salvage and save it, or the woman telling everybody to pull their donations? Then you can ask yourself this.
I'm going to ask you this. Why in the fuck should Turning Point USA be saved? What do they do besides grift for corporate special interests? This is an organization that is funded by the Zio billionaire class. Charlie attempted to pull away from them. No, you don't. And here you are, simping for that organization? Well, I don't know, Timmy. It's not looking good. You really didn't think long and hard about this, but then again, considering his history, this is not surprising. He has been shown to have his hands out for any amount of corporate special interest money. He doesn't hesitate. That's probably why he's lost support from a number of people that used to be on his show. We've attempted to get in touch with him. I have Tim's phone number. And when I've attempted to get a hold of him, he's ignored me for years. Anything, doesn't matter. Even if it was to be helpful, doesn't matter. Some people think that they're just above reproach. Well, now that he's falling down the side of the mountain, because when you go from that level down to where he's at now you see what happens when they really start to crash out. Because eventually, if Tim doesn't have a large audience, then those corporate checks are not coming anymore. You're only as good as how much of an audience you can sucker into falling for your bullshit. Eventually, when they're hip to what you're up to, they just move on. And that's it. And not another tear will be shed. Much like the IOF who offed himself. Well, guess what? No one is going to feel sorry for you, Tim, when you can't afford that multi-million-dollar compound in the middle of nowhere. That's life.
If Charlie were alive today, what do you think he'd be saying about all of this? Do you think he would say, I don't trust my wife and my best friends to run my organization? Or do you think he'd be saying, Candace should burn down Turning Point USA?
Turning Point USA is going to get burnt down whether you like it or not. And it's not because they specifically did something that you can point to and say, this is the reason. It's a collection of a multitude of different reasons, not the least of which is your pathetic rant, which doesn't make any sense. You're defending an organization that has upper management taking ungodly amounts of money in terms of salary. And they've been shown to have been caught in tons of lies. Tons of lies. Candace is going to be featured very prominently on this stream this evening because there's multiple layers to this. But I will say this, and this is coming straight from Candace Owens. These are the issues that exist right now with Turning Point USA that she believes is a big problem. Number one, the amazing, heroic, magnificent Mikey McCoy had blood all over him when Charlie was assassinated. As we saw by actual amateur footage from the event, that is not true. Who lied about it? Rob McCoy, who we've covered extensively recently. Number two, Charlie was a committed evangelical who only liked Catholic architecture. That, of course, is not true. It has been well documented by Candace, who is a Catholic, that Charlie was considering conversion to Catholicism. And perhaps in part because of the distinction between where the Catholic Church stands on Israel and where the evangelical church, Protestant, stands on Israel. Number three, Charlie's neck stopped a 30-06 bullet because he ate salad and had strong bones. A Christian miracle. Not really. Just one big stupid lie. And maybe a lie that they decided to throw out there that they thought would stick, but man alive, you really don't want to question people who know their firearms and know what they're capable of doing. And then when you get caught in a lie, you double and triple down on it. And that, of course, was Andrew Colvett, who came on my radar as a result. Number four, Charlie never blinked in his support for Israel. I don't even need to comment on that. We know he did. Number five, the magnificent Mikey McCoy called his father first after Charlie's assassination. Whoever he called, it wasn't his father. That much has been verified again. What more information will come out, we'll never know. Number six, Terrell was told to remove the cameras by police, the ones that were in the back behind Charlie Kirk right after he was shot. No, that's not true. The reason they were removed is because they were trying to cover up a crime scene. As we know that they ultimately did, they cemented over it. Number seven, Terrell moved the SIM cards because people were stealing hats. If you're going to lie, come up with a better excuse. For the love of God, it truly amazes me how bad some people are at lying. But then again, lying is a sin anyway, so why do it? The truth will always set you free. But they can't lie. I mean, they can't tell the truth because if you tell the truth, it gives up the grift. And if you give up the grift, where are you going to get the money? It's not like there are readily available jobs out there for numbnuts like these people. Number eight, Ben Shapiro and Charlie Kirk never had any bad blood between them. Ben Shapiro. We all have bad blood with Ben Shit Piro.
Oh, I'll teach you.
Bad blood enough that he breaks his own nose punching a speed bag. A speed bag broke his nose. Your time's coming too, Benny boy. Number 9, Charlie established Doge was not unusual. Turning Point has financially audited the company every year since its inception. That is not true. They are in deep shit when it comes to their financial wheelings and dealings. And finally, Mikey McCoy was a hero on the day of Charlie Kirk's assassination. Yeah, not really. The scam is over for them. And hopefully, in the very near future, the scam will be over for the rest of these Looney Tunes, corporate whores, anti-American scum. Now, I'm not saying that for every Turning Point USA or near attended Center for American Progress is the reason why we don't have nice things, but they play a very outsized role. No question. And hopefully, enough people are starting to wake up to that reality. We keep pushing forward, guys. That's our job.